years and lots of issues. She's served on the various school boards and so forth, and you've seen her in the news. You've seen her giving presentations all across not only the county but occasionally around the state. She's been involved in tax reform and also in educational reform. So tonight, of course, we're speaking more on educational reform. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Christine Reese. Doctor.
You know, I was, as we were saying, Pledge of Allegiance, I was reminded when I taught in California before I came to Georgia Tech. I'm an economist professor at Georgia Tech. And I used to have the Star Spangled Banner on my cell phone. One time I was in class and my phone rang. I forgot to turn it off, and it starts playing the Star Spangled Banner. One of the students looks at me and says, "I didn't know you were a baseball fan."
That's good.
I know, it was good. The story has lasted about 10 years in the telling, too, so that's great. Well, I welcome you all tonight, and I want to start by saying that I am really pleased to be invited to do this. I think this is a very interesting and complex issue. But first, let me read to you the goal of this evening, as was presented to me when I agreed to do this session to moderate. And that is the goal of the debate. I'd like to maybe change that to discussion. The goal of the discussion is to create a family-friendly environment that will allow each panelist to put their best position forward and provide an informative forum for the audience to better understand their positions on the Common Core educational standard. So the committee that arranged this discussion has really carefully put together rules that I think will go a long way towards meeting that goal of helping us get more information out, more analysis out, and being able to exchange information. So again, the opportunity here is for the panelists to make the best presentation of their particular perspectives on the issue. We will have, in a minute, I'll go over the debate rules, discussion rules. We will have opportunity for audience questions, but they will be in the form, please, of written questions on 3x5 cards, which you all should have received or will be handed out, as we go. I would encourage you to write those questions out and hand them to people as they come around throughout the discussion. If you hear something that one of the panelists says that you find interesting and you'd like to have them explore more, please put those together. They will be bundled up for me, and then I will take categories that seem to be of the same topic, general topic, and try to put forth one question that kind of captures the audience, one or two questions that captures the audience's interest. Okay, so what we're going to do is, in a minute I will introduce briefly, could spend all day at this introducing these wonderful panelists, but I'll introduce briefly each one. I have already flipped a coin, and the table right here to my immediate left, your right, is going to be starting. So there'll be a speaker from this table and that table, and they will each give a 5-minute presentation of their perspective on this issue. At the end of that time, we have 20 minutes, and we have a former boxer and wrestler here as a timekeeper who's going to really keep everything right in line. That was a joke. You weren't really a former boxer. No, okay. But you could be tonight if called upon to do so. Okay. So I will then ask several of some pre-prepared questions that I sent to the panelists all about a week ago. And so they've all had a chance to look at those and think about responses, and I will ask questions of the panelists. And each side will have 2 minutes to respond, and then the other side will have 30 seconds, if they wish, to do a rebuttal. And then I'll go on to the next question. So we anticipate that taking about 20 minutes. Then we have time for audience questions. I think I've described that. And then we have 5 minutes for each panelist for closing comments. And we'll go in the reverse order of the way that we started on the closing on the way out. So I think I covered it all? Okay. So our panelists tonight, their bios are all available to everybody, and so I thought I'd just race down the things that I found of personal interest as I looked over these bios. And I did want to say that we are really blessed tonight to have a group of people who both represent range and depth in what I see as the important issues in this debate. So, you know, you've got some real talent up here and some people who really thought deeply about these issues, and I think we're fortunate to have that. So immediately on my left is Representative Fran Millar, who is in the Senate District representing parts of DeKalb and Gwinnett counties. The interesting thing about him is he holds a Bachelor of Arts in Economics.
You might hear him.
And works in with Wells Fargo Insurance Services. He serves as chair of the Retirement Committee, vice chair of the MARTA, Metropolitan Atlanta Transit Overview Committee, secretary to Health and Human Services Committee, Education and Youth and Rules Committees. And he started in the state legislature in 1998 in the House of Representatives. There's a lot more there. And then our next panelist is Dr. Martha Reichrath. She is currently the Deputy State Superintendent of Schools for the Department of Education. Now, talk about having experience and responsibility relevant to this question. Her area of responsibility in education is curriculum, instruction, assessment, and accountability. She is an educator herself. She's been in public education for more than 40 years. One thing that's interesting to me, being a person who follows corporate turnarounds, is that she was the turnaround principal at Chamblee High School. And another point that really struck me was in her bio, it indicates that the high school that she turned around is still a shining testimony to the power of high expectations and establishment of a culture of excellence. Okay, then the next panelist is Jane Robbins. Jane is an attorney, and her work is in education policy, student privacy, and parents' rights issues. She works with one of the groups that I've worked with often, ALEC, and has authored and crafted and drafted a number of pieces of legislation on education issues and other issues. She taught in legal writing at Emory Law School and has served as a practicing attorney and has written in a broad number of places. Native of South Carolina, and a lot of written work out there that's, again, accessible on the web. It is full of facts and information. And last but not least, Senator Ligon, William Ligon, who is with the Georgia State Senate District 3. And I warned him I was going to say this. The thing that struck me here is that he lives on St. Simon's Island with his wife, a former educator, and 5 children. He joined the Senate, first elected in November 2010, and has been very, very active on the political and legislative side on the Common Core Standards issues. He's chairman of the Senate State and Local Government Affairs Committee, vice chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, member of Judiciary, Ethics, Health and Human Services committees, and a number of other, served in other committees the prior year in his freshman term, and was also a municipal court judge for the city of Brunswick for 16 years. So I think you will agree that we have a range of expertise here and a lot of preparation and thought about these issues. And so there are our panelists. So I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for coming. Okay, Mr. Timekeeper. Senator Millar, would you like to begin? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. My name is Fran Miller, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank the Fulton County Republicans for holding this discussion tonight, because the purpose of this is to inform people and give them some ideas and correct some facts and go forward from there. Ironically, Senator Lee and I, he's probably one of my best friends in the Senate. We happen to have different positions on this. And yet I know you and members of the press over there may be disappointed. We're going to show you that Republicans can have a disagreement and still have civil discourse, so it may disappoint you all tonight. But I think I'd like to start off with that most of my opinions are based upon people that I've known for a long time, including this lady on my left. And I'll give you some examples, okay? Alvin Wilbanks, Superintendent, Gwinnett County Schools, longest serving superintendent in the state. 2010, National Urban School District of the Year. 2010, the first school in Georgia to implement Common Core, Peachtree Ridge High School. Very impressive man. He spoke the other night. Very positive about the Common Core. Some of the sources of some of the things we talked to you about tonight, the Georgia Public Policy Foundation. For most of us as Republicans, that's the conservative think tank. That's the one we go to. We may not agree with them on all their positions, but they're very well respected between Kelly and Bonita, that particular organization. The Georgia Partnership for Education, which is the Georgia Chamber of Commerce arm, which is headed by Steve Dollinger, former Fulton County School Superintendent. And finally, the Southern Regional Education Board, which to me is probably one of the best education organizations I know. They represent states from Delaware to Oklahoma. I didn't know those states were in the South, but after I got involved with the organization, I understood why they wanted to be part of it. Any discussion of Common Core has to start with what it's about, and it's about standards. And in the simplest terms, when we talk about standards, we talk about the knowledge and the skill level of a particular child in a given subject at the end of a particular grade level. For example, in this case, we're talking at the present time, English, language arts, and mathematics. That's a lot different from curriculum. It was very interesting the other night when Superintendent Wilbanks was talking. He said ever since we've had standards in the state, starting in 1985 with the Quality Core Curriculum, and then back in 2004 we adopted the Georgia Performance Standards. He's convened an advocacy group to make sure that they look at the curriculum almost each and every year. I found that very interesting. Some of you, I think Judy, you out there were at the meeting, and to get involvement, because the curriculum deals with how a teacher teaches, okay? You know, what students are doing in the classroom day by day, okay? What textbooks are being used. These are all local decisions. They're not decided by the state. Governor Deal has put out an executive order that will continue here in the state, as well as some other things. But that's very, very important because people get standards and curriculum confused. I think that's an important point. A couple of the other things that have come about recent times on the Common Core. Senator Ligon and I happen to agree on some of the subjects of Common Core. The assessment piece, it needs a lot of work. If you've been reading the AJC, there's your plug, guys, the last few days about the tests that we presently have, the error rates, etc. If you're going to have assessment, you can't have that happen with Common Core. And so that's a big issue. He and I have talked about that. And in Common Core, they talk about the cost of the assessments with Park or the other group. It could be $30, $40 million. Well, I will tell you this, we spend about $8 billion on public education right now, and I don't want to waste 30 or 40 million, but that's not the end of the world if we actually get some tests right and do away with a lot of the stupid tests that I don't think we personally need, with all due respect to the Department of Education. Again, Governor Deal has tried to alleviate some concerns with his executive order. Folks, we've been sharing data for years in this state on an aggregate basis. We do not share it on individual students. The executive order covers that. And again, he emphasizes here in Georgia, according to our Constitution, we will not give up control of the federal government. Bottom line is this, for me in the Common Core. I truly believe when I look, and I'd like you to remember this statistic of all the things I just said to you. When we have kids going to college in this state, and somewhere between 25 and 50% of them require remedial education, we got a problem. And we have to face that problem. This is not a panacea. Common Core is not going to cure everything. But we live in a global world. And other than Friday night football, where I live, Dunwoody plays Lakeside. It's much more important how the kids at Dunwoody do against the rest of the nation and the rest of the world. Thank you again for being here tonight. We look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Good evening. I would also like to thank the Fulton GOP for having us tonight. This is a great idea and a great opportunity, and appreciate all y'all coming out and missing the Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech game for this. We'll try to get you home by halftime. I wanted to share something. I went to a conference on Monday down at the Woodruff Arts Center, and part of the conference was about education in the 21st century. I took lots of notes. It wasn't about Common Core specifically, but it was, a lot of the speakers were these national, sort of Harvard progressive types who were telling us what we need to do with education in the 21st century. And there were three takeaways, I guess, from that. One is that we need less focus on academic knowledge, because you can always Google something if you don't know it. So don't spend so much time on academic knowledge. Greater focus on 21st century skills. What this means is things like collaboration and cooperation and communication and all these other things that for some reason always start with C. And then generally it should be less about what students know than about their personal characteristics. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember outcome-based education. That's what they were describing. I spent 6 hours listening to them describe outcome-based education. And they didn't call it that. They call it something different now, but that's what it was. And this is exactly the philosophy that is behind Common Core. We're told that this is standards, it's not curriculum. And it is true that the local districts will be allowed to pick their own curriculum. They can choose one Common Core aligned book over a different Common Core aligned book. Also, the two terms tend to get blended together. This was from a PowerPoint in the Georgia Department of Education in February of 2012 that said Common Core GPS, a curriculum for preparing a workforce for the future. And that's what they're doing. They're preparing a workforce. But we're told not to worry about this. The parents shouldn't worry about losing control because the experts have looked at this and it's good. So what do we get? We get a radical new structure in which the control rests not in the state of Georgia, but with private interests, with other states, and with the U.S. Department of Education in Washington. We never voted for that. We get math standards that have been imposed on us that are admittedly designed to prepare students for non-selective community colleges. We never voted for that. We get English standards that follow a trade school mentality, that if it's something you're not going to see on your job, you really shouldn't spend that much time on it. So if Paradise Lost is not part of your job responsibilities, why waste time on it now? We never voted for that. We get the cutting edge assessments, and they talked a lot about assessments at this conference that I went to. They don't want multiple choice tests. They don't want something that really tests academic knowledge. They want tests that are more subjective and that test your skills and your characteristics, personal skills, personal characteristics. We never voted for that. And they have dictated that our teacher evaluations will be tied to the results of these experimental tests. We never voted for that. They have instituted ruinous unfunded mandates.